Okay, everyone, I'm back for another edition of the Teach One podcast. And today I am happy to be joined by Mr. James Jones. And Mr. James Jones in the New Britain, Connecticut area does not need any introductions for sure. But to everybody else, he is the current CEO of the Boys and Girls Club in New Britain. He's also a dean of students at New Britain High School, which gives him a different perspective because he works with students in school and then he sees kids after school and on the weekends and whatnot. So, welcome, Mr. James Jones.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we're gonna get right into where were you born? Where were you raised at? Where'd you go to school?
All right. So I was born in Hartsville, South Carolina. We moved to Connecticut, and I moved to New Britain. That's the first spot we moved to in Connecticut, and we've stayed here ever since. So
Okay. How old were you then?
I was turning 5 years old when I moved here.
So going to school, you hit pre-K kindergarten right in New
Yep.
Britain.
Kindergarten in New Britain. I started off at Smalley School, and then
Okay.
we ended up when we first moved to New Britain. We moved on Broad Street. That's one of the streets that most foreigners kind of move in to in New Britain, like Polish, Yemen, whoever is current foreign to New Britain, they
Yep.
live in that area. So we first moved there, and then we applied for public housing, and then I moved to Malachowski Circle, where I went to Holmes Elementary School after I moved to Malachowski Circle mid-year.
Okay. Holmes Elementary School. You went there
Yep.
until fifth grade.
To fourth grade, and then I moved. So I
Oh,
was
you
there
was
for four
moving.
years. Oh,
Yeah.
I moved a lot of places in the brain.
Okay.
That's half of the. That's not even half. So,
I got you.
yep.
I know I had to move a lot,
Hmm.
especially as a youngster, because we were doing a lot of dodging of paying rent in
Hmm.
different places. Unfortunately,
Absolutely.
um,
So we were moving for a couple reasons. My father
yep.
didn't. We moved to Connecticut, and my father was at work the day we moved here because my mother's siblings lived here, and
Hmm.
she wanted out, so she moved
Bounced out.
us here, and he didn't know where we were. So every now and then he would come up to here, Connecticut, looking for us. So we'd be out of that area after a while,
Yeah,
in the beginning. Then when
I
we
got
were old enough to make a decision, we were able to make the decision if we wanted to visit and stuff. So,
okay. And then
yeah.
you Holmes you went to after Holmes. Where'd you go?
So I went to homeschool. Those were the best years of my life, first of all. And then I went to Lincoln Elementary for a year.
Okay.
And then I went from Lincoln to Slade, and from Slade to New Britain High, and from New Britain High to CCSU. So
Okay. So New Britain is all through your bloodstream for sure.
that's it.
You mentioned homeschool. Why was homeschool so good?
So homeschool, it was a small knit community, and just we were outdoors all the time at homeschool. We had a path from homeschool to Pulaski in the woods,
Yep.
and we would run through those woods and play. We would run all the way to Holmes, to Pulaski School and back to Holmes. And the winner gets a Jolly Rancher, and those were just some of the best times of our life because
Yeah.
we were outdoors, and it doesn't matter what the weather was. Our gym, and I hate to say it's because of the gym teacher, but the gym teacher was awesome. The
Yep.
academic teachers were awesome too, but the gym teacher, Craig Johnson, who was our art teacher, he had a nickname for everybody. I was Indiana
Mhm.
Jones, and he would do a horn when you walk into the room, entering Indiana Jones. And, so you were celebrated there every day. When you walked in the building, someone was celebrating you. Tavernier, the music teacher, used to, James, it's your turn to sing,
Yeah.
introduction. So they were very engaged teachers, close knit community. Most of those teachers were from New Britain, and they
Yep.
lived in that area. So like when we went Halloween, trick or treating, we'd knock on their doors, and they'd be like, "Oh, these are my students," to their whole family. So that's probably why those were the best years of our lives. And some of my friends who lived in Malachowski Circle with me, there at that time they were buying houses, and their family were moving out of the projects, and
Yep.
stuff like that. So
Wow.
good
So
times.
you definitely. I want to go back to the teachers that you mentioned there. You mentioned the art teacher and the gym teacher. Can you say their names again?
Craig Johnson was the art teacher. He later became an administrator there. He was a principal at Holmes for years.
Okay.
And Mr. Doback was the gym teacher, and he was just an awesome soul. And I can name all my teachers from elementary school up, but like they were all great. Like
Yeah.
I can't pick one over the other, but those two, like I mean, Craig Johnson, he was an art teacher. He'd pick us up with this Mazda truck on the weekends, and we'd do art shacks with him and stuff like that. We used to be in the back of a pickup truck, like driving
Yeah.
around in a little Mazda.
Yeah. Stuff you
So
can't do now. You can't
no,
do
you
that
can't do that
now.
now.
Um, but those things help make connections. And something hit me about just making nicknames for students in a fun
Yeah,
way, and having people feel connected to their school community is the things that we definitely want to see as
absolutely.
educators in our schools. You hit Slade, right, for
Yep.
middle school, and then you
hmm
went to New Britain High. What
hmm
kind of a student were you, or what was school like in middle school at Slade?
So in middle school at Slade, it was great until I had a house fire when I was in eighth grade.
Hmm.
So once I had the house fire, it like changed everything because that point we have four kids. There's no other four-bedroom apartments anywhere. So we ended up getting displaced into a hotel on the Berlin Turnpike. And
Wow.
then we had a taxi service bringing us to school that wouldn't show up some days. So we became truant. We became truant students when we're not, that's not who we were. I had an African American guidance counselor at the time. Her name was Mrs. Springer. She
Okay.
became the principal there. So she was my guidance counselor. And when we had the house fire, she took me out to Marshall's to shop and get some stuff because we really lost everything.
Yeah.
My brother had a coach that took him. Like, so someone, she asked, was everyone in our family taken care of? And some adult in the community kind of took
Looked
one
out
of,
for everybody.
yeah, for like all of us. Like someone
Wow.
took one of us in. And at that time, she owned a house near Target in New Britain, and
Yep.
she had like an in-ground pool. So we stopped by and I carried some pool supplies to her house for her. She's like, "Well, while you're with me, let." So I was carrying these, and I'm looking at this pool, like, "Wait a minute, she has a house?" Like, because
Wow.
at this point, when I'm in middle school, I lived in Mount Pleasant, which is a housing project near Slade. And
Yep.
if you walk from Slade to Mount Pleasant and Mount Pleasant to Slade, you see duplexes, you see a highway, and you see the projects. You don't get to see like, you know,
Big
one
house.
family homes or anything. Like now you can see them because there's some that have been built, but we never had that, inspiration to want those things because we never seen them.
Never saw it.
Um, yeah, so we once I went back and I was like, oh, I saw this house. Miss Springer's house is like what? So, and you see an African American family all
Yeah.
around,
Doing
a
it.
full family.
Yep.
So that's when stuff started clicking. And she put me in this dropout prevention program. She's like, I know you're not gonna drop out, but this program's gonna help you. And this lady, Miss Miller Sarah, was in charge of it, and she was my contact if someone didn't come pick us up to bring us to school,
Yep.
or if like there was any issue. So she was the person. She was like this blonde, pink hair,
Uh-huh.
red Daytona sports car. So anything you always needed to talk to her. So she
Nice.
was awesome. But she got me involved in this adopt a grandparent program when I was at Slade, and we went to the Lexington Convalescent Home, and at that convalescent home, we were assigned a grandparent there that
Yep.
we mentored, or we had play
You had a
checkers with
connection
and
with. Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Yep. So, and unfortunately, one of my friends is McDougal too, but this guy's name was Mr. McDougal, and
Okay.
he did not let anyone come in his room but me. He's like, if they're not black, they can't come in here, and I'm like, sorry, Mr. Do. But by the time the school year was over, he
Yeah.
invited my
You
friends
invite
in,
other
and
people in.
so I learned a lot from him, and he learned a lot from me. So that's where I made a stronger connection with my academics and stuff because of that little slip up. I could have went any other way, but I made some connection with my guidance counselor and Ruth Miller Sarah, who became one of my colleagues later on in life. So it was
Wow.
great. So.
Listen, I love just touching on first of all guidance counselors. I got a guidance
Hmm.
counselor, Miss Centeo. I'm still trying to get you on here, right, to talk about how she helped me help school save my life. That's my a whole nother story on that. But
Mhm.
the impactful people that you mentioned, from Springer to Melisandro, like that's helping you out in a situation, and I'm sure it helped a bunch of students out at that time during middle school. It just, I know the work that you do, and I see the type of person you are when you're in the high school, when you're helping out in the middle school, and what we talk about on and offline. And
Mhm.
I'm hearing the same things that you talk about now and what we
Mhm.
could do in our schools that was happening back then.
Yep.
What was high school like?
So high school was awesome. We had some outside issues with the family and stuff. My brother was one of the well, he was probably the top athlete in the state. So we got a lot of people in our corner and stuff. And my person at the high school was my gifted and talented teacher, Mr. Slow and White.
Yep.
He was like, you know, you would think like guidance counselors would be talking to you about college and stuff like that, and they didn't. Like he was the one who was like, hey, you're gonna make it here. This is what we're gonna do. This is your game plan. You
Yep.
need to get a summer job that's gonna keep you busy, so that every summer trouble doesn't find you because you're gonna be so busy. So I got my first job with OIC, which is with Paulette Fox.
Hmm.
And I worked in the summer with her, just job readiness stuff. And then my first outreach job was handing out condoms and needles and bleach containers on North and Willow Street in New Britain to
Whoa.
people who were having HIV issues in the
Right.
neighborhoods.
The
So that
HIV.
was during
Some
that era.
condoms and needles. Right. Of
Absolutely.
course. Of
So
course.
let me tell you, psychology was on point because I had to read these people, learn what to stay away from and who to stay away from and how to interact with people.
Yep.
So I learned a lot about New Britain doing that in those neighborhoods because at that point, having that conversation with him, um, my focus was learning what not to do
Yeah.
instead of what to do. So that's where kind of all I feel like that's where it all kind of came together. Where I started working with him as my mentor, and then doing jobs in the community. And then when I realized the following summer they reassigned me to another job, but Parks and Rec had some camp positions available. So I decided I wanted to work with the kids instead because I did the adopted grandparent
Yep.
program, and then I did the toddler program at the high school that still exists.
Yep.
So, and then I ended up being the supervisor for that program because the teacher, Miss Danino, was like, "Oh my God, you know all this stuff," and I'm like, this is all psychology in this community that I'm learning." And
Yeah.
she's like, "You know how to get the kids quiet, doing stuff like 1, 2, 3 eyes on me,
Yep.
stuff like that." And so once you start realizing that people are recognizing that you have some skills in certain things, you go with it and say, okay, well, maybe that's my calling. And once worked at Parks and Rec that summer, I knew it was because when I worked at the camp, we had 200 first and second graders
Yep.
out in a AW Park every summer,
Lord. First.
tons of kids. But if I said hey AW, they say hey what, and then
Right.
they'd be absolutely silent, waiting to hear what else I needed to say. And sometimes I would whisper so that they would have to really struggle to
Right.
hear.
Right.
But just that kind of stuff told me like this is my calling. I need to do something with kids. And then when the summer was over, I got a job at the Edwards and Finest supermarket. So I stayed there from 15 until I graduated college. But all my kids throughout the summer during the school year, they would come just so their parents can see me and get in my line. Can we go
Yeah.
in Coach
Yeah.
J's line? Can we go in Coach J's line? And that's where I started building connections with the community because kids, their parents, first of the month, there's like 10 people in my line. And
Yep.
they're like, well, this line's open. They're like, no, we got to go to
You
him.
gotta
We
go
got to
this
go to
line.
him. So
What was your favorite subject in school?
I want to say the sciences mostly because of the psychology of other things and other
Okay.
people and stuff that kind of resonated with me. just how people operate. And there was always these myths about middle child and this and that and
Yeah.
our families. And I was a middle child, so I was gonna make sure everybody knew like that's not true. So I had to make sure like I was gonna be the exception of the middle child
I got you.
syndrome.
Exception
So
in the middle child. I'm the baby out of
yeah,
six, so I'm spoiled. I'm the
yeah.
spoiled one that I'm the patriarch now, actually, to tell you the truth. But
See?
I was
Sometimes
always
those roles change.
yeah, it kind of shifts a little bit. So, CCSU, you went from New Britain High
Yeah.
to CCSU
Hmm.
to major in what?
So I was gonna be a school psychologist, and two, I did my internship with Dr. Marshan in New Britain, and it was like PPT galore. I was like,
Really?
this is not me. I'm wasting my services because if I'm gonna just be in PPT meetings and doing all this, I'm not
Mhm.
gonna be servicing any kids. And I'm like, I'm not gonna make an impact on the kids that need me most. So I ended up like taking a different route and getting my psychology degree instead.
Okay.
And fortunately, I became his what do you call it, a paraprofessional for
Okay.
his office during
Yep.
that time. So I was doing his PPT paperwork for him and,
Okay.
doing all that stuff. And then Mr. Springer, my former guidance counselor, was like, hey, we have this position that we're starting up at Slade called a discipline specialist.
Okay.
And we want to interview you this summer when you graduate. I want to come and interview you. So I was like, oh, okay, sounds good. Da, 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 da. So Mike Foreign came to my campsite that summer and was like, "Hey, can we do an interview real quick?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I did an interview with him. There was like six other people who did interviews too, and three of us got hired at the middle schools.
Nice.
Three out of the six. So three. My friend Freddie, who was a dean at Pulaski, he just retired
Oh my
too.
God. Yeah, Freddie just retired. Wow.
Yeah. So he's over here with me at the club now. So it's all good. Making the same moves. But
That makes
yeah,
sense.
so we were two and then they hired another gentleman that worked at Roosevelt. Because we had three middle schools at the time. So we all were hired and we kind of created our own job because they knew what they wanted us to do,
Yep.
but we knew what we needed to do. So what we first did is we looked at stuff in the community that was a problem, and then we looked at how we could combat all those issues. Because back then, people say, "Oh, these kids are so bad now." Trust me,
So,
there were shootings, there was
what
all
year
kinds of
was
stuff
this?
in this
What year
community.
was this?
So this was '98.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So like '94, we had a student. That was my senior year in college. A student got shot in front of New Britain High School,
Hmm.
Miguel De Jesus. So after that, there was a couple of years of shootings in New Britain that we never would have thought would have happened.
Hmm.
But there were some kids reacting to those behaviors when we first got started because there was uncles and aunts involved and all kinds of stuff, and um, the YMCA used to host the dances, and there was always a fight and police arresting them after because of all these territorial things. So Freddie and I decided that we were going to start the middle school sports programs and stuff because there wasn't anything like that.
Yeah.
Like, so we started doing that. And then I said, well, these kids still are, going after each other, like, every time they see each other somewhere else. So we started doing middle school dances, and I did them at my school because I'm like, listen, I know all these other principals don't want our kids at your school, but they have to figure out to like each other some way. So
Right.
Mr. Springer was like, well, I'll be at the dances if you want to do that, but if something happens, it's over.
Right.
So we started doing this every month, and it kind of just shifted all the behaviors um, in the middle school. At least the kids started liking each other, hanging out with each other, getting each other's what's that group MySpace account back then. So they were all like, and we were winning, and then we would play sports against each other, very competitive, like 100 kids playing flag football, 100 kids playing basketball. Then we would take like the top 20 to play against the other schools. But we just kind of changed the climate of the middle schools, and I think that I that's something we can brag about because it was a nightmare when we first got there, and we were able to clean that up over the years and success. I mean, we outlasted maybe four or five administrative teams. We were there forever. So um,
Wow. I knew you were part of the fabric of the community. I just didn't know how deep that ran for so many years within the school
Mm,
system itself, right?
yeah,
And taking on those roles. So obviously, you had not just that discipline specialist, but other positions in the middle school as well. Like, because
right.
eventually it had to lead up to dean
Mm.
somewhere, and then eventually you had to get to the Boys and Girls Club. So how did you get to that position?
At the Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
Okay, so my 24th and a half year, the CEO from the Boys and Girls Club was stepping down. So, I was on the board. We gave a contribution to the Boys and Girls Club, like every pay period. And they had did a renovation in 2012, and we gave a big sum of money for that as a family because we understand what the Boys and Girls Club was doing for the community. But at that point in time, when Todd was stepping down as the CEO, I came in here and was like, all right, so who's applying for this job so we don't lose this fabric in the community? Because they were thinking of merging with Bristol, and Bristol was coming in to try to, like, tear it up and kind of make a daycare facility instead of, hey, where are these kids going to go after school? Because when you have rooms for daycare and childcare, you can't use that same space for kids after school because, it has to be designated just for those
Yep.
services. So I didn't want that to happen. And no one was going to apply for the job. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to apply. And at that time, my wife was ill. And I was like, that's a big risk or whatever. And she's like, no, you have to do it. You have to do it. So I applied. I told our superintendent at the time, Nancy Sarah, like, hey, I need my 25 years to retire, but I'm applying for this job
Yep.
and I have a year and a half left. Is there some way you can work something out with me? And I talked to the CEO here and he said he works from 10 to 5. So I was like, all right, well, if I can work to like 10:30 and then come to the club after that and whatever. So superintendent was like, hey, if you get the job, you're the man for it, number one, and we'll do
Yep.
whatever we can to accommodate it because we don't want to lose that resource in our community.
Yep.
So went through a couple of rounds of interviews. I did get the job. I didn't know much about the job. I just knew that we needed to, you know, get going because the numbers were low and all kinds of stuff was going on. And we don't really have a lot of sponsors like other clubs do
Yep.
outside of New Britain. So I was kind of like, all right, well, let me see what I can do here. And within the first week of the job, I realized, just looking at the kids' faces and everything, like they're the motivation and they're gonna bring this all together. Just keep looking at them, and so I would do some work in here, and then I go out and hang out with them for 30 minutes, and I just get a little refresher, and then just come back to work because you know whose lives you're saving when you're doing that work. But you also have to be reminded, like you got to go out and give some high fives and shoot a couple shots every now and
Yes.
then.
Yeah.
So they're my therapy, and when I'm working and I'm trying to get all these funders to fund what we do here, they're my motivation. So
So let's talk about that for a second. You're currently been in this role for what, 14 years?
as a dean, I was a dean for 25 years,
Yep.
and Boys and Girls Club 5 years.
5 years. Boys and
Yep,
Girls Club.
yep.
How how is it working in the school system? And well, first of all, how is it just being a member of the New Britain community, right? You've seen all these students grow up in different capacities and their parents as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I know there's a new mayor in New Britain, but I want to say you're like an unofficial mayor of New Britain. Like, what is that like every day, just in your general life?
All right. So I committed my wife and I both committed ourselves to New Britain and the youth
Yeah.
in New Britain, and it was kind of like a joint conversation we had because at the time when we both were educators working in the school system, a lot of our friends were moving from New Britain, like they were moving out of New Britain, and then we were noticing like a lot of them were switching up. like once they move. Like, my brother, bought a house in Farmington because of course he needed the room. But like our friends who were moving, like he bought a house in Farmington, 15,000 square foot house, but he shopped in New Britain. Like he
Hey,
comes to New Britain, Stop and Shop. He comes to New Britain, wherever.
yep,
So, those people, some other people like that moved from here as educators, like they switched up and it's like, oh, these kids instead of our kids. So we didn't want that. We didn't want to be that person where it's like, oh, these kids instead of our kids. We wanted to own this and be committed until we retire, like give whatever we can to the community so we can look back and say, hey, we did our part. And we're also hoping that we're training other people to do it because there were so many people that had left at one time. Like there was no one from here that understood like some of the arguments that we would have to fight for our kids. So we're always trying to train the next person to take over. So, and God forbid something happens to one of us. But
yeah,
the reason why I tell my own kids do everything with purpose. Like everything I do, there's a purpose around. One kid asked me, because these kids they do stalk you. And my license plate, I tell them I don't hide. That's why my plate says Jones because
yep,
I'm not hiding anything I do. My moral compass points north, and that's who I am. But like they'll be like, Mr. Jones, how come your post is always at 4:22 a.m. and you're in the park running? I said, because I'm actually there at 4. I run my 2 miles, and then my wife's friends that she used to walk with before she
yep,
passed away,
hmm,
they come later, so I walk those 2 miles with them, just to catch up because they always want to know how the kids are doing. But 4:22 is my son's date of birth, and my daughter is 5:29. So I finish on her date of birth and I start on his because they know when they see my post every day
yep,
that I'm doing what I'm doing for them. So that's just kind of like everything is a purpose for me, but they know I'm waking up with them on my mind and they need to do what they need to do for themselves today because as a family, we're all working together. So that's just one of the examples of purposeful work
yep,
that I do. But everything I do here at this club and um, at the high school is all community based. So when I'm at the high school in the morning, the reason why I do that is because number one, I know every kid that walks through my door for a scan
yep,
is getting greeted appropriately.
yep,
They're getting a warm welcome. They might get a song sung to them if I look in their
yeah.
face and look like they're having. I'll be like, good
But,
morning,"
but
because
you
if I
know,
see
this is what your home's gym teacher did for you, right?
absolutely. So we got to pay it forward.
For sure. Um,
Absolutely.
and then what?
So that also taught me the fact that there's nothing for high school kids to do. Like the kids are like, Mister, how come you got so many little kids at the club? Like, why can't we have our own club? Like, and I'm like, guys, the dream is to have a teen center on this site so you can come in and have your own space and you don't
Yep,
have to walk around them because we have like 300 elementary and middle school kids come here after school
right.
and they do need their own space, but they walk in the building, it's dark. They leave school, it's dark. So you get 8 months of darkness, and then they get the summer and stuff, and people act like they're not gonna wild out. Well, guess what? If they kept the light all year long,
Yeah,
they wouldn't be coming out of the dark. So my goal is to get a teen center for them, so that they can be in the light all year round instead of sometime. And I do make connections with kids there, like to get them out and play. Like for instance, all the kids who don't make the basketball team, we start a league for kids who didn't make the team, and then we have an in-house league for them. And
yeah.
a couple of those kids went back the next year and they made the
They
team.
made the team. They made the team.
Yeah, same thing with volleyball. The kids who they don't have a gym to go to play volleyball with during the basketball season, so we open our gym and we're saying, we don't make our money off of membership. So if you can't afford the $100 membership, guess what? We're
Yeah,
gonna get you in here. We're not gonna advertise it, but we're getting you in here if it's keeping you out of a dark place and a dark room for
yeah.
the
I've
so
never heard of any Boys and Girls Club turning any students away, and I wouldn't think that you would
absolutely
do
not.
something like that either. How is it running? What does the Boys and Girls Club do in New Britain every day? Like, what's a day like? What programs do you sponsor? What time do you open? How does that work?
Yep. So currently we open after school for aftercare and we open in the summer. Um, we're looking into having childcare services coming in the future.
Yep.
We actually have a meeting with them next month because childcare is a big issue in town, but we're not giving up space because we don't have space to give up in our facility. So we'll probably be outsourcing that to another facility. But what a day looks like here, once the buses start coming in around 2:15, 2:30,
Hmm.
we have kids coming in. They all greet each other in this game room that accommodates about 200 youth. So for the first hour and a half, they're either on the computers, they're in a sitting area, they're having a snack, they're playing pool, they're playing ping pong, and they're just waiting for all the buses to come in. Once majority of the buses come in, they break out into groups. We have kindergarten, first and second grade, third to fifth, sixth to eighth grade, and then we have a teenage group. So they rotate throughout the different areas for 30 minutes, mostly 35 to 40 minutes. Uh, they have a homework session in one of the rooms. They go to a STEM lab 2 days a week. They have
Hmm.
social emotional smart girls program, a social emotional smart moves program. So they do different things in those two programs. The girls do a different program than the boys. Then we have an aerobics room. We have a lower gym that they do different activities in, so they can play hockey or something different there. We have a virtual projector there that projects virtual games on the floor for them. We have a fitness center. We have an aerobics center, and we have an upper gym, and we have a pool. So they rotate throughout all those areas.
Yep.
And if they're doing the swim or swim lessons, then there's an announcement and they can leave those areas and get their stuff and, line up for swim. We also offer dinner every night,
Nice.
Monday through Friday. We have a biddy basketball program that we do for the younger kids on Saturday mornings, and we open to two on Saturdays. We have a program that we did and we're restarting. It's Autism Awesome Sundays. So our autistic population, we've been working with an agency that is providing those kids with one-to-ones through their insurance provider, so that they can have the services that they every other kid gets here at the club. We can't afford to do that on our own. We can't afford to have a one-to-one for them. So the
Right.
insurance providers are providing that, and it's been a great partnership. And our kids are learning so much from the kids on the spectrum, and they're learning so much from our kids. And one of the moms is like, when Asia wants our attention at home, she just says 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, like Mr. Jones
I
at the
love it.
club. And I said, hey, it works, right?
It works.
So they're paying attention, they're learning from us, we're learning from them, and we're having a great time. And then in the summer, we have an outdoors facility in Burlington, Connecticut that we renovated, about 10 acres of land. So our kids go up there. A different group goes up there every day,
Yep.
Monday through Thursday, and then on Fridays they go on field trips somewhere else. So
Who's your biggest? I don't want to put anybody on a spot or anything like that, but I know you have a lot of organizations that contribute to
mhm.
funding the activities and stuff that goes on there. Who's a big partner that you have?
so so we have a lot of partners.
Yep.
We have to raise about $1.5 million a year
Oof.
for operating. We charge our kids $1.66 a day to come here, so it's $300 for the school year. You do the math,
Yep.
divide that by 180, $1.66 a day. But with that being said, a lot of when I first came here, they were paying $100 a month, so
Oof.
$25 a week. But it still closed the door to so many kids.
Yeah.
We had about 80 kids, and now we have like 300 something that come direct care after school.
Yep.
So I'd rather have a bigger number than make a bigger profit, because at the end of the day, if we didn't have it for the $1.60 a day, we'll
Yep.
have 70 to 80 kids instead of 380.
Right.
So with that being said, I take that as my charge to raise those funds. We have some contributors that have been totally loyal. The Tomaso family, you can call them anytime. And I don't call people unless I absolutely have to. When I first got this job, I realized that there was probably going to be a deficit, and my first year like a $200,000 deficit. So what I first did is I looked at all the plaques on the wall and I looked at all the funders,
Yes.
and I called them all and introduced myself and said, "Hey, I'm the new CEO. This is where we're at. This is what we're doing. Come on down. We're renovating everything. We're trying to make this place 21st century for our youth. How can you help?" They came out the second week. They gave $100,000. Boom.
Wow.
And then I called a couple of friends. I had the Stroll family. They came out the same week. $20,000. Waller's $20,000. And the David and Randy Manafort, and then James Manafort. That
Wow.
family very involved.
So I see you
Randy.
right off the bat just mentioning families, not
Yep.
even
Yep.
corporate sponsors or anything like that. You're coming with families that
Listen,
are true to New Britain.
yep. Corporate sponsor wise, we don't. There's really not
Wow.
any corporate sponsors here. I've just met with Stanley Black and Decker. They told me they've been trying to get a meeting with them forever. I
Mm-hmm.
finally got a meeting with them this year, and of course, the tariffs are tearing them apart right now. So it probably was a bad time to meet with them, but at least we had a conversation. They were awesome to talk to. They had great energy. So I'm hoping that that's going to work. What we're trying to shoot for now is Operation Impact is, you know, let's make a bigger impact with smaller donations. So every day we're going to be, for 100 days, we're going to be calling 10 companies or individuals and trying to get them to commit to $20 a week. So, like, say you're the owner of a dry cleaner and you have 20 employees. Your
Mm-hmm.
20 employees donate $1 a week. Get that to us. You're our corporate sponsor. We're going to give you a cape that shows that. You guys, deposit your funds, tag us on Facebook every Friday that you made your contribution. So that's, what we're trying to do for 2026, because we can't, like I said, if you see what's going on with the federal government, we know that we're the communities that are going to get hit the hardest,
Right.
the ones with the care for kids and all that stuff. So, and we are not one of those clubs that get care for kids and everything.
Yep.
So we're not making any money off of the federal government right now. So we're just trying to, you know, do what we can for the kids. A lot of grant writing. That's something I learned how to do when I got
Yep.
here too. But I think it's easy for me to do that because their story is my story.
Yep.
And I mean, when I have to tell the stories, guess what? I know the story, so that's why we're having success with it. So.
Listen, I just think that you're doing just such a wonderful job, and it's hard work when you have to ask people for stuff just to maintain what's
Mhm.
best for our kids. Um, Being in school during the day, and you're at the high school, you're at the middle school, you're always available when people call on you, and then you deal with these kids in the afternoon as well. What do
Mhm.
you see as a major issue that our students face when it comes to them growing up in today's society?
Um, I don't, I don't know. See, one thing about our kids, I feel
Yeah.
like their confidence level is off the chart. Like they have the confidence that they need to survive,
Hmm.
and it's just all the other stuff that they need to work on, like the etiquette and the approach,
Yeah.
and how not to feel like a victim.
Mm.
I don't
Because
want
we
them.
have everything we see now, whether it's through social media,
Mhm.
through hip hop, through culture, they have access to things that you and I didn't have access when we were growing up, right? Like
Right.
they can
Hmm.
see a lot of things. Their language is a little bit different in different
Hmm.
surroundings, whether it's around adults or other kids. They're like you said, them feeling like a victim every now and then, or getting
Hmm.
depressed, or feeling entitled to certain things without
Yep.
earning it, or like putting in the work to get it. The vaping stuff, and it's
Yep.
always some level of substance abuse with every
Hmm.
generation. But the vaping is the stuff that I see a lot. Do you
Yep.
do any of these things that I'm talking about carry over into your work?
So, not here
Yep.
at the club.
Yep.
During the day, I can see that there might be a lot of stressors, and especially at the high school level, like
Hmm.
90-minute periods. I don't mean to call anybody out,
Talk
but
about
that
it. Talk about it. So good.
90 minutes is a lot.
Yeah.
And now it's a lot for your teachers that are not like, ooh, I love to teach.
Hmm.
And then it's a lot for the kids to just have to be there for 90 minutes, so they're looking for an out. And I
Yeah.
feel like sometimes those stressors, we're bringing them on by pressuring them to be somewhere for 90 minutes. Now
Hmm.
if you have a great teacher that's engaged for 90 minutes, 90 minutes is going to go by real fast.
Yeah.
But those who are not, you're going to be looking for what else to do. And what you do is you walk the halls and you find someone who's doing something that,
It's supposed to be done.
makes, so I feel like number one, the school that the building in New Britain High, that building is like a basement, and it has nothing to do with any administrator who's here
Yep.
now. But
Yep.
when you leave that school and you go to, like, I've been to, all these other high schools, Farmington and all these schools, I'm like, you
Music
know
Club.
what?
Farmington High looks like a mall. It looks
Thank
like
you.
it's just Farmington High is something different. And I know what you mean by
Right.
basement, just the dark
Right. Right.
colors.
You got black
It's,
floors, you got
yeah,
maroon
yeah,
walls, you got
yep.
dark ceilings,
It's not
and the
bright.
thing is like my oldest, like I was saying that my niece and my nephew, we raised them too. And once my niece got to Eastern and she left Nebraska High, she goes, I didn't realize it, but now that I'm in college, I can see out the window and actually daydream for 30 seconds because there's windows in every room.
Right.
And I felt like I was in a basement for all these years, and I didn't even think about it until I just got here. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're thinking about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's, we got it. We have that's something we can control, and the kids
Hmm.
can't control. So I'm
Hmm.
hoping that people realize that these kids do deserve a different environment. And like and the reason why I brought up Farmington High, like they have that central area
Yep.
where kids can gather and kibitz and have conversation and stuff like that. And that's what they need in New Britain High. Like they won't be in the bathrooms doing all kinds of stuff if you had a spot where they can actually just sit there because they're taking a walk and they want to sit and have a conversation for 20 minutes because they get like a 10-minute pass or whatever,
Right.
but they know what time they got to be back by. But there's no environments for them to have that, okay, let's have a break this way instead of that way, you know
Yep.
so
What's the best part of your day? The best thing about the work that you do?
I enjoy everything I do. So when you talk about the best part, I don't know. I don't know.
Come on, man. You something that just makes you like it got to be either when you step into New Britain High, or you step into the Boys and Girls Club, or you see the kids get on the bus or off the get on the bus,
Well, that's all.
or,
That's all.
or get
That's
off the
I love.
bus.
I love every second of all of that, and that's
Yeah,
why when they get off the bus, I'm not in
yes,
here unless I have a Zoom call. I'm out there, so
yeah,
that makes my day. But it also makes my day to see kids at New Brand High that sometimes come to school,
yeah.
and then you say, "Hey, we missed you. I'm glad you're here today. Not where you been or how
Right,
come you've
right.
been absent." But that you can see what happens to their eyes. So that's a big part of my day. I think when kids realize that they're being seen, like someone's actually paying attention to them.
So
um
you mentioned something that was really, really key that gave me chills because I know that feeling.
mm,
The look in their eyes when you told them that you missed them, right? That
hmm
day, right? Where were you
yeah,
yesterday? Hey, I'm glad to
yeah,
see you here. And that look that they give you and how fulfilling that makes you feel,
yeah,
right? That's true passion for the work that you do.
absolutely. But you know what, and then sometimes there might be a reason that they haven't been there,
Yeah,
and they come back to you later and be like, "Mister,
let
you
you
know
know.
why I was out,
Yeah,
really?"
yeah.
So
You don't gotta beat
um
them over the head with it right then and there. Tell me why
right,
you
right, right,
weren't here. Do you know blah blah?
right.
Nah, you.
Nope.
Hey, I missed you yesterday. I noticed you wasn't here. Just you
Hmm.
noticing, and that's any student from being a 6 year old to an 18-year old. They gonna feel that. They're like, wow,
Hmm.
somebody noticed me.
Yeah,
Somebody
and
thought about me.
it goes for adults too, because there's
100%.
adults that are not always in work, and sometimes they need to hear that instead of, oh, you're out again, oh, and some of them are going through stuff too. Like I try to tell some adults, hey, listen, if someone's out a lot, there's something behind that.
Yeah,
There's something behind that too. I mean, and yeah, our kids are suffering from it, but the teachers need to hear that too sometimes. Like, hey, glad you're here. Glad you made it in today. Please let me know what I can do to help you.
So let's talk about that for a second. I had a
Hmm.
previous episode where we talked about teacher shortage and it
Hmm.
being a hard role for teacher these days to, like you said, commit to the 90-day block, whether it's in a high
Hmm.
school or deal with certain student behavior and whatnot.
Yep.
How do you support your staff at the Boys and Girls Club with staying mentally fit, staying right, staying trained to work with little kids to adolescents? How do you gear them up to be the best they can be?
They see me on the floor with them fighting their battles, and so when I'm at the door checking kids in, I'm not just checking them. I'm checking my staff too.
Hmm.
I'm making sure they're walking in on point and ready to go too. Like
Yep.
that's something they don't know, but I am. I'm making sure, like, yes, you might have had a argument with your spouse or something, but I want to make sure it's not on your face when you're walking in here. I'm
Yep.
not gonna say it to them, but if I know it, then I'm gonna be more alert and give them the support they need to. So I think that kind of helps. Like they know that I'm on the front lines with them, and if someone's out, because sometimes we right before Christmas, everybody was getting sick around here, so I was on the floor, So but it wasn't a complaint that I'm on the floor. It's hey,
Right.
I'm on the floor. I'll be in here. I have a radio if you need me. Da 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 da. So it's all about being a team player, but I feel like your staff has value in you if you have value in them. And
Yeah.
if you can't play favorites either because, they pick up on that. So I try to make sure you tap into everybody.
And you're modeling that expected behavior for them as well, right? When you go out on
Hmm.
the floor and you say this is how you interact with kids and whatnot, they see you. And I'm a big
Absolutely.
believer in modeling expected behavior. Everything I do with my principals, I would expect them to do with their staff, right?
Right.
So to model that kind of behavior so their staff, their
Mhm.
teachers can do it with their students and so
Right.
on. What's the I don't want to say the worst part of your day, but what are some things that you wish could get better in this whole education atmosphere?
Um, in the educational atmosphere, I wish that, and I don't want, no, I don't know because then maybe some people do treat their kids certain ways, but I feel like I have a philosophy of treating everybody like they're going through trauma,
Hmm.
whether they are or not. Treat them like they are because if they were, how would you treat them?
Yeah,
So I that's just my philosophy. Be kind, receptive, and just treat everybody like they're going through trauma, and then you'll be happy, they'll be happy, and like I said, no stressors because you did the right thing. Like I know I'm a 9 o'clocker. I go to bed at 9 o'clock.
yeah,
I'm just putting that out there, but I go to bed and I'm able to sleep because I know I gave my all to the day every day. So if I didn't, I would be trying to figure out why and what
right.
could I do differently, and then I'll just go make up for it the next day because, um, like I said, I like to have my moral compass point north,
Yeah,
and
you're pretty disciplined with that too. You're pretty
yeah.
disciplined with
No, and I'm modeling for my kids because I want them
yeah.
to. These are the kind of people that we as parents want our kids to be. Like sometimes my son plays basketball for CCSU, and
Hmm.
and some people are like, oh, I wish he shoot a little bit more. He does all the extra stuff and all that stuff. I said, you know what? You can't expect him not to give because that's all he's seen his whole life. We're givers here,
Yeah,
so I'm like he's doing what he's supposed to do, but you guys don't look at his points. Look at how he's contributing to the whole game, not
right.
just so I mean I expect that from them, but my kids know too. They know they treat everybody a certain way, and if somebody treats them the wrong way, they know, hey, not my job to deal with adults. It's my dad's job, so I need to talk to my dad about this situation. And they've that's happened like once, so
So
we're good.
what can we look forward to from your organization, the Boys and Girls Club in New Britain? Are there plans to expand?
So you number one, aggressively, you're gonna look for an aggressive campaign to
Hmm.
to have sponsored a community-based sponsored Boys and Girls Club, which means we are operating based on the commitment the community of Greater New Britain is providing. Like, we're not going to be looking for federal dollars and stuff. We're
Right.
going to be looking for a community saying, "Hey, you guys are actually keeping employees employed because they can work and their kids can be there, and this is a stable in the community that has been here 135 years." And, we're also going to be looking to add a teen center for these teens because I don't understand why I've been in this town for 45 years and we don't have one yet. So, people keep talking the talk and they don't walk the walk, but I'm aggressively trying to get a teen center for these kids. With this presidential stuff going on, I don't know how successful I'm going to be because there's so many other battles, but
Yep.
it's not something I'm ever going to give up on. So,
I feel you. Anything that we can do here, well, me, I'm going to be around in the city anyway, helping and
mhm.
supporting that work through the educational system that we have. But anything that I could promote through the podcast for you, please just let me know. We'll do that as well. Um, we got to get to the point where we talk about our top five.
Yeah.
Here on the Teach One podcast, this is an educational program, and you do a lot of
Yeah.
teaching over there. You mentioned all the after school programs that you have in the business. So that means you do know something about school and education, right? You've gone through school
Yeah.
yourself. You got to have a top five TV or movie, or top five TV or movie shows, programs, whatever, that deal with school.
Mhm.
So, all right, do you have your list ready?
I do.
Okay, so we're gonna start
So,
with number five.
yep.
You tell me why, and then so on from there.
All right. So number five, I'm gonna start with Dangerous Minds, and that's
Okay,
because it's just to show the tension between the school system and the students that we can relate to, like in our community a little bit
I
back
got
in the
you.
day.
Yep,
And
that's
that
what
was like I think that came out when I was like right out of high school, so I think around that age.
No, 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 not Michelle Pfeiffer. No,
No, the 90 ones. 90 the nine it came out in the 90s.
Dangerous Minds, but then there was the
Yeah.
writing one. So yeah, Dangerous Minds is
Yeah,
not
yeah.
Michelle
You're
Pfeiffer.
talking about
Hilary Swank.
uh
Hilary Swank.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what
yeah.
I'm talking
See,
about. All right,
I remember some athletes now. Sure, okay.
all right. Number four.
Um Stand and Deliver. Stand and
Okay.
Deliver. I like Stand and Deliver.
Yep.
Let's see. Number three.
Three.
Lean on Me.
Lean on Me made it to three on your list. Now we have a
Yep.
lot of people who put that as number one. Why is
Well,
it that number one?
I'm gonna tell you why it's not number one because you're gonna hear my number one. I'm gonna
I
tell you
got you.
why. But Um, and number two, and no one can say it's not a educational movie, but I'm gonna say remember the Titans because
Yeah.
yeah, it's educational, and I'm gonna tell you when I saw that movie,
Okay.
I don't cry off of movies because I'm one of
Yes.
those people who are like these are actors, I ain't
They're telling a
crying.
story, a
That
true
is
story.
the only movie like the tear went ding at the car accident, and I was like,
Okay.
and
Yeah, that was
just
tough.
and then it also brought back the fact that, like I have parents and grandparents who were dealing with that kind of situation
Mhm.
when they were in high school back in the day. So I was like, wow, this is what it was like. Like, no, my mom was like, nah, it's worse than this.
Yeah,
This is
it's
a,
real. Let me
this is a
sit down,
different
son. Let me tell you
version.
about what went down.
Right, because we're from Hartsville, South Carolina. So
Right.
they're like, oh no, that's a glorified one version. But
Wow.
anyways, and
No,
then
that's good though. I want to say, don't get to the more. I just want to say, well, anything Denzel, right, should
yeah,
make a list. That's good. And
absolutely.
it's a sports movie, but it is about school. So
Right.
kudos to Remember the Titans. All right, number one.
Right. And number one, and I'm going to say, Waiting for Superman, that movie had a huge impact
Ah,
on me
okay.
because it pretty much said things that people didn't want to hear.
No.
And then it kind like people didn't want to hear people say the things that they were saying. And I was like, nope, this is exactly what it is. And what are you going to do about it? And everyone talked about it for a little while and then
Yep.
it disappeared again.
And this is Jeffrey Canada, the Harlem
Yep.
Children's Zone, trying to
Yep.
make sure we own our own like schools in our
Yep.
community and getting everybody. It figures you would say something like that, being
Mm-hmm.
the community person that you are in the place that you're in. Wow, I didn't expect that one at all,
Yep.
um, to make anybody's list. But you're right, and I could see. So, what do you think about that though? Is that a model? that you can see working in a place like New Britain?
Not necessarily, but what I could say
Yep.
is holding people accountable. Because when you hold people accountable to do their job and to treat people the right way, but you're also treating them the right way,
Yeah.
then it's going to all work out. But then there's also a standard. People have to understand, like, our kids want standards. They want you to hold them to a standard of excellence. We had a superintendent, Dr. Kurtz, that was here years ago.
Yep.
And that was her motto. And that is so instilled in me. Like, it's the standards of excellence
Yep.
is like, I always in the conversation with me. Because when you hold kids to a standard, they rise to the occasion. And when I was at Slade, I'm telling you, like, my principals had enough time to do their paperwork because I was out there making sure that these kids understood that
Yep.
these were the standards that they were going to be held up to at Slade Middle School. Every teacher will tell you, I walk in there, I knew who my target kids were. I
Right.
knew who they were. And I will walk to the door and the rules have changed now, but we had a rule where like this much of your window had to be open where we can look
Right.
in your room and see
Look
what's
at that.
going on.
Yeah.
And I would look at the teacher and do a thumbs up or thumbs down after every switch, every class switch or whatever, thumbs up, thumbs down. The ones who I knew were struggling, I
Right.
would always do that to them, but they knew that I was going to have their back, and the kids knew that we just wanted them to be successful at the end of the day. And so many of them come back and was like, Mr. Jones, remember we used to have to be on the fourth block,
Yep.
the fourth block in the hallway. We couldn't be like. Now that we're adults, we know why. I said, well, why? They were like, because you wanted the line to look straight. And I said, no. The line, it wasn't anything to do with the line. If you were
Yep.
on the fourth block, if someone flew out a door because they were mad, it wasn't going to hit you. So I was thinking about your safety. And I said, and if you listen at the beginning of the year, I tell you that because I would meet them all in the assembly at the beginning of the year and tell them what the expectations were. And then I would just, walk around and make sure that that was happening everywhere. So I feel like it has happened and it could happen.
Yep.
And when my wife was a teacher at New Britain High, she told me every year they could tell in the freshman academy
Yep.
what kids came from Slade and what kids came from anywhere else without the kids telling them, based on the way they spoke to people, the way they carried themselves, and the standards that we held them to. And that's not, throwing any shade on any other school.
I
But when
got
your
you.
wife comes home and tells you that every day, no, I can tell which kids come from your school.
Right.
That gave me some motivation that we were doing the right
You're
thing.
doing the
Like we
right
were
thing.
having those kids come up prepared.
Yep.
And now I think a lot of people do this work avoidance thing, like they want to make everything easy for themselves. And I'm like, listen, my first 90 days of a school year, I used to go home and go to bed at 7 o'clock because
Talk about
I
9 o'clock. You make me feel
listen.
old. 7 o'clock.
Listen, listen. I held them, man. I had signs outside. If you come late, you stay late.
Right.
So if
Right. Right.
the kids, just knock it in the butt in the beginning of the school year. So if
Yeah.
you came to school late, I had your name on a list. I had your last period class. I had your bus number. If you didn't come to do that detention,
Wow.
I went and got you off the bus, or I got you from your last class 15 minutes early. I put them all in the just so my first 60 days, I would just be doing that just so kids know, like, your house, your rules, our house,
Yep.
our rules. You're going to follow these rules and expectations here. But then we also had the leverage with the sports and the dances and
Yes.
everything. We'd be
That's
like, oh, you want to go to the
yes.
dance? Well, you
Yep.
know the drill,
Yep.
you know. So we did a lot of fun things, and the kids wanted to be part of those things. So that was my leverage. I actually had some leverage by hosting those events and stuff. So I didn't like just have those events and not work them. I worked them so that that was just my way of saying, "Ooh, I could take a deep breath with you guys and not be the mean guy. Like, come out and play sports and come out and do the dance and do all these other movie nights and stuff like that." So it
Now.
all comes full circle. But like I
Yep.
said, all kids want to be held to a standard of excellence, and I see a lot of kids in this community that I had who are doing the same similar things with their kids, and it's just great. So.
When's the last time either a student or a parent or someone came up and said, "Hey, Mr. Jones, thank you for this that you didn't even know you
Mhm.
might have done"?
Yesterday.
Okay. Okay.
So
Wow.
yesterday, not through Messenger, like
Yep.
an
Yep. Of
adult,
course, you get
an
to.
adult, her and her daughter. they were at the cemetery. They lived near the cemetery, and her mom was at the cemetery, and they happened to come upon my mom's tombstone and my wife's.
Wow.
And then, so my wife and I are, our pictures on hers because that's
Yep.
where she's right next to my mom.
Yep.
And she said, I got into this whole story about what you did for me in middle school with my daughter, and she just wanted to make a snow angel for your mom and your wife. So she made a snow angel in front of them,
Wow.
and she took a little video and she sent it to me. So I thought that was awesome. And she just wrote a whole paragraph of what I did for her, like a father figure for her and stuff. And she was telling her daughter about it, and her daughter's like, "Oh, mom, can I make a snow angel for them?" And she did. So that was some awesome stuff.
Listen, it's those things right there that hit.
Hmm.
I'm so glad you got to experience that every now and
Yep.
then, whether it's through Messenger, like you said, through Facebook,
Mhm.
through some back channel, or if someone sees you and says, "Hey,"
Yep.
um, it's those things that let you know again what you're doing is worth it. You've been recognized a bunch of times for your work and all the stuff that you do. I got a list of some of your awards that you provided me with. Which one are
Mhm.
you most proud of?
Um, I'm gonna say so. There's gonna be a tie.
Okay. Okay.
Pick a tie. All right. So I like when I was recognized as a beacon of hope because I got to say a message to the whole entire district about our kids and just who we are in this community growing up. That was a platform that none of us have ever gotten. Like my 25 years, I never heard someone from New Britain
Yep.
stand up at the podium at Convocation and get to
Yep.
tell their story. So that meant a lot to me. And then the CEO of the year for Northeast Boys and Girls Club Alliance. Like
Yep.
I wasn't expecting that because I'm out here on my grind. I'm out here on my grind,
Hmm.
and I don't have like these. Like we have like Greenwich, Redfield, Hartford. All these clubs have huge sponsors.
Yep.
They've been doing their work for years. We've been doing our work for years too, but we just don't have those big sponsors that they have in a city like New Britain. But I would think that those clubs would have been recognized just because they have so much more money to do so many more things. We're doing little things here, but making a huge impact with the little things we're doing. Um, and I was shocked because I wasn't expecting it. So
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the Beacon of Hope
right.
thing. That was more recent. And then you got the
Mhm.
CEO thing, which is more recent as well.
Mhm.
I just want to congratulate you on all the good work that you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time out to come bless us on the show. And thank you. Just thank you for
Oh
everything
no.
that you do for our city that we work in and for what you
Yep.
do in general.
All right. I appreciate you. All right. Yep.
So that's it. That's a wrap on this episode of the Teach One podcast. But I do have some homework for you. You got to subscribe, you got to like, you got to share with your teaching besties, and then comment on your favorite takeaways. That's your homework. Seriously, thanks for tuning in and being part of this amazing community of educators. Keep inspiring, keep growing, and remember you're teaching one student at a time and making all the difference. So, see you on the next episode.